from service members. Quickly share information and breaking stories with friends via Facebook, Twitter, or email. News, photos, video. Your military 24/7.
Five oceans. Seven continents. Whatever it takes. Wherever it takes us. America's Navy. A global force for good.
When you put on the uniform, you are held to a higher standard.
Well, a lot of times, you're not going to know what's going to be thrown at you, so you need to be ready for anything.
Stress can affect every Marine and Marine family.
It's very hard for me to have a career when we're always moving around.
We have the same bills that everybody else does.
And you never want to let your staff NCOs down.
The De-Stress Line provides anonymous counseling for Marines and Marine families when it's needed most. It takes courage to ask for help. Call today and let us help you win your personal battles.
Which of the following are symptoms of hypothermia? The answer is D, all of the above. Multinational military partners and allies are sharpening their skills during Exercise Allied Spirit in order to better coordinate tactical and logistical duties on the battlefield. Army Broadcasting correspondent Gail McCabe tells us more in this report.
Reconnaissance soldiers from the Royal Canadian Regiment say Allied Spirit is a good test of skills and abilities.
To us, it's just getting down to the nitty-gritty, the things at the lower levels that make us tick.
Your AER.
For the Dutch, Allied Spirit is opportunity to get better.
2,500 meters.
For the Mississippi National Guard, the exercise focus is working out all the nuances of command and control. Nemesis Troop, part of the 2nd Cavalry Regiment, is fine-tuning tactical procedures.
Right now we're just doing some small scenarios to get our platoons and smaller units into the thought process of moving forward.
Moving forward is the mantra for some 2,000 soldiers from 5 nations. National representatives using this multinational exercise as a catalyst for professional growth and personal improvement. The framework for the development is JMRC, Joint Multinational Readiness Center, in Germany, part of U.S. Army Europe. For soldiers from Hungary, their critical element is communication, the spoken word and the equipment that carries it.
We need to find out the way how to solve firstly the technical problems, and secondly the communication problems.
Solving problems, establishing solid interoperability is both a goal and a challenge.
We're trying to get away from providing every participating nation with U.S. equipment and figure out technical solutions to using their own equipment.
Allied Spirit is one of several multinational military events on a training schedule targeted at strengthening capabilities and connections between allies and partners. Gail McCabe, Germany.
Being able to track and analyze the movements of units and individual personnel during training exercises is key to gauging progress and providing feedback. Army Sergeant Jacob Sawyer finds out how this process works and files this report.
The Joint Multinational Readiness Center, or JMRC, trains units from around the world to be able to work together for a common purpose. JMRC has a team of analysts that collect information of troop movements to communications during each training event. This team is known as the Training Analysis Feedback Team, or TAF. They take the information they collect and study it to see what could have been done better, what worked, and what didn't. The TAF then combines all the information into a briefing that is given to a select group of military mentors known as observer coach trainers to present to the training units so they can learn and improve for the next mission. An operations analyst for the TAF and military veteran explains the purpose of his job.
We provide real-time analysis to the observer coach trainer to be able to coach and train the training unit to become better.
For training exercises like Allied Spirit, tracking over 2,000 participants from around Europe and North America is just another workday for the TAF analysts. Rain or shine, the TAF is ready and waiting to record and analyze training units' actions and present it to help better prepare them in future operations. From Hohenfels, Germany, I'm Army Sergeant Jacob Sawyer.
Having a good relationship with our allies is one way the U.S. Air Force maintains its global influence. Air Force Staff Sergeant Marvin Wigfall takes us to the skies over Germany and France to show us an example of bilateral, multicultural flight.
Back in 1778, the French provided aid to Americans during the American Revolution. 237 years later, the United States Air Force is still keeping that proven partnership alive. Members of the 37th Airlift Squadron flew from Ramstein to France to provide planes and personnel to help with the French training exercise, VOLFA.
Well, the purpose is really, with today's environment, operationally speaking, we don't have a lot of opportunities to engage in a large-scale conflict like we have simulating here in the exercise today. So it's a chance for all those forces to come together and validate kind of their different doctrines and their operational concepts and how they would work together as a group.
VOLFA is a multi-annual exercise that focuses on testing entry forces in a high level of electronic warfare. It also gives Ramstein Airmen the opportunity to train alongside one of their oldest allies.
As we work together, we have trained together, so we know all the way the other people fight and which are their way of fighting, their procedures. And by training together, we will be ready to go on mission together more quickly.
VOLFA and similar training events allow us to hone our skills, strengthen our partnerships, and ensure we remain forward, ready, now. Air Force Staff Sergeant Marvin Wigfall, Ramstein Air Base, Germany.
Being prepared for any number of outcomes is important to mission readiness, and soldiers becoming separated from their unit is always a possibility. As Air Force Senior Airman Robert Mason reports, personnel recovery training prepares soldiers to make it out of hostile situations.
Becoming isolated during a mission is a troubling scenario many soldiers may someday have to face. Today at Camp Humphreys, personnel recovery training finds these soldiers stranded as a result of a convoy accident.
What this allowed us to do is to provide people who have never been introduced to the personnel recovery architecture the actual means that they would expect to see once they were an isolated personnel, either through an aircraft incident or even a ground convoy or ground patrol. Once they had become isolated, it showed them the steps that they would proceed and the communications that they would utilize along the architecture to facilitate their own recovery.
Survival skills like these are essential to soldiers like Private Kamani Robinson.
It's more of reassurance and trusting the Army in general that they have my back and they're going to do everything they can, and then it's relying on your equipment. We went through a lot of equipment and a lot of tools today, and I know how to use them better, and I know how to use them by myself and with a group of people. So if I ever do need them, in the worst case scenario, I know how to.
The training ends with Private Robinson and his team airlifted back to safety, now equipped with the knowledge and experience they need to survive. Senior Airman Robert Mason, Camp Humphreys, Korea.
Hi, I'm Master Sergeant Amber Wortman here at Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar. I'd like to give a shout out to my husband John and my 3 kids, Grace, Emma, and Emmerich, in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
My name is Specialist Teddy Smith out here at Camp Beer in Kuwait. I'd like to wish my wife, Erica, happy anniversary. She's in Hinesville. I love you and I can't wait to get home.
Hi, this is Master Sergeant Jamila Brooks, stationed at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. I'd like to say hi to all my friends and family in Mansfield, Ohio. I miss you guys and I can't wait to see you again. And a special hi to my brother Isaiah in Afghanistan.
Coming up, we talk to civilians who are providing much-needed support to the Ukrainian military. And we'll showcase some of the best photos from our service members, as In the Fight, presented by Divots, continues. The Soviet Union was dissolved in what year? The answer when we return.
shout out to my family and friends.
I want to send a shout out to my husband,
To my parents, my family back home.
I'd like to give a shout out to my girlfriend.
To my family and friends in Lansing, Michigan.
To my family out in Tucson, Arizona.
My beautiful wife and children in Des Moines, Iowa.
To everybody in Texas.
In York, Pennsylvania.
Colorado Springs, Colorado. Chicago, Illinois.
Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Orlando, Florida.
Oceanside, California.
And Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
I love you guys. I miss you. And I hope I'll see you soon.
From combat-related stress to the day-to-day stressors of life.
This package is going to be completed.
This is the fourth time this week.
Stress can affect every Marine and Marine family. The De-Stress Line provides anonymous counseling for Marines and Marine families when it's needed most. If you're feeling the effects of stress, call today and let us help you win your personal battles.
America's Navy, a global force for good.
The Soviet Union was dissolved in what year? The answer is B, 1991. Over the past few years, the Coast Guard has taken a larger role in the oversight of offshore oil rigs in order to better ensure the safety of their crews. Coast Guard Petty Officer Carlos Vega talks to a few inspectors who walk us through their process.
Right now we're in an energy renaissance, and there's a tremendous amount of oil and gas activity down here in the Gulf of Mexico. There are tens of thousands of people that are involved, and it's important for the Coast Guard to ensure the safety of the people and the environment. My name is Lieutenant J.G. Al Blaisdell. I'm stationed at Marine Safety Unit, Morgan City. I'm in the OCS Division, which is the Outer Continental Shelf Division. We're responsible for inspecting and regulating all the oil and gas industry operating in the Gulf of Mexico.
The main focus for Coast Guard being out here in regards to prevention is the safety of the personnel aboard these vessels. And from there, it tears on down to the environment and to the property and the machinery of the vessel as well, to make sure that it's going to be safe for people to be on board.
We focus on different systems, so engineering. We focus on generator shutdowns, turbine shutdowns, and ensure that if there's any issues, those systems shut down properly. We also inspect all life-saving equipment, so to ensure that if personnel had to evacuate, they're able to do so safely and their equipment works properly. We also focus on drills to ensure that if, heaven forbid, something were to happen, they're able to react in a timely fashion and do what they're supposed to do.
I particularly love this job. It's a really customer service oriented job, and we get a lot of face time with the mariners out here. And the biggest thing is to make sure that we're preventing any incidents. It's hard to quantify when things go right, but it's definitely easy to see when they go wrong, and we're out here to prevent that.
With past cutbacks on military spending and increasing tensions over Russian aggression, the nation of Ukraine has found itself lacking some of the basic resources its military needs to defend itself. NATO Channel correspondent Paul King talks to civilian volunteers who are donating their gear and time to support their nation.
How did the director of a zoo with a weekend hobby flying remote-controlled airplanes become enemy number one of the pro-Russian forces in Ukraine? Yuri dedicated his life to caring for the animals at the zoo in Odessa until last year, when he was forced to leave his position after refusing to become complicit in a corruption scheme. Yuri took his passion for remote-controlled planes and video cameras straight to Army SOS, just one of several volunteer organizations that support Ukrainian armed forces with essential equipment. Now he travels to the front line to spot enemy positions and guide in artillery fire, something, he says, that has made him unpopular among the Russian spies that he says operate in the Donbass area.
When I was there, they announced me to be enemy number one because I traced down a Russian center full of military equipment.
The volunteer stopgap is urgently needed. Last year, the Kiev Post newspaper published a photo of Red Mullet, the nickname of a Ukrainian soldier who goes to war wearing completely donated gear. It highlighted the severe shortfall in equipment that the Ukrainian government can provide to their soldiers. At Patriot Defense, a non-governmental organization dedicated to training soldiers in giving first aid training and equipment, volunteers say the soldiers' situation is grim. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense says this is a legacy of annual cuts in the armed forces dating back to the collapse of the Soviet Union, and only halted after Yanukovych's government was ousted. Some also point out that the Yanukovych government seemed to deliberately neglect Ukraine's armed forces, especially in the east.
Since there was no apparent evidence of any danger from neighbors, the process of shortages continued up until the last year.
But for the volunteers at Army SOS like Alina, who gives up every weekend to help, the most important thing is there is no time to wait for government support.
We have no communication with the government. We are independent volunteers. We know that the government is probably doing something, but we don't see any result. And maybe it's easier for us to do what we are doing independently.
Divids is a 24/7 operation that provides a timely, accurate, and reliable connection between the media and the military serving worldwide. Through a network of over 200 portable satellite transmitters around the globe and a distribution hub in Atlanta, Georgia, Divids gives you access to the front lines with live and archived broadcast video, still imagery, and print products. Visit our website at dividshub.net and search through our enormous video and photo library. Register on our website to gain complete access to high-definition content, along with breaking news alerts and webcasts from top military officials. For questions or comments about In the Fight or Divids, you can email us at ondemand@dividshub.net or follow us on Twitter and Facebook. As we close, we feature some of the best photos that Divids has to offer as we listen to Eddie Horst's composition, Pangea. See you next time, In the Fight.
Here's the music. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to dance. Here comes the music. Everybody. Everybody dance. Everybody. Everybody dance.
It's going to make it harder to learn that material. And then if you're pulling an all-nighter or getting not enough sleep, then it's going to affect your ability to perform well the next day. Okay, so, in terms of consolidating, there's a lot that goes on during sleep in terms of consolidation of memory. What's happening is that, your brain is kind of defragging up there, the computer, so to speak, and it's consolidating information and memory from the previous period of wakefulness. So that doesn't get a chance to occur to the degree that it should. Okay. And then there are also relationships and interpersonal skills that take a hit as well. We all know that adolescence is a time of raging hormones and consequently a lot of mood swings, and then you throw not enough sleep into the mix, and it's kind of like a monkey wrench, and it can certainly have an even more adverse effect on their peer-to-peer relationships as well as their relationships with you, their parents, and other authority figures, teachers, whatever. Okay. So, any questions about So, what are some of the obstacles to getting adequate sleep? Number one, I think, is what I would say is our culture, okay? First of all, let me explain that when kids move into adolescence and puberty, there's a physiological change in their body clock, okay? So it's not them being obstinate, necessarily not wanting to go to sleep. What happens is that their biorhythm changes and they're actually not tired until later at night. So this is a physiologic thing, okay? And then I'm also telling you they need 9.25 hours of sleep. How does that happen in our culture when, school start times are really based on actually it's economically driven. They want mom and dad to get to work early enough to be productive for the day, okay? And so they want us to be there a certain number of hours, and that's just not in sync with their sleep schedules or with their optimal sleep schedules. Most kids, adults, if I say just sort of 10 o'clock-ish is kind of the time when we want to go to bed. Well, for them, it can often be 11 o'clock or sometimes midnight, and there can be an even more radical shift. Sometimes I'll be talking about that later. And then they have to get up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning. Studies that have been done have shown that school start times that are around 7:30 or so, those kids perform significantly less well in standardized testing. So just getting an hour more of sleep, if they, is really important and improve their test scores significantly. Then there's all the extracurricular activities these days. The sports and the dance and whatever, okay? And, like everything in our culture, we kind of take it to the extreme. So you don't just play soccer a couple times per week to get some exercise. When you're on the soccer team, I don't know, I don't have a child who's in soccer, but I assume it's like 3 or 4 nights a week, and it's for a couple of hours, and then you gotta get home, and get dinner, and they've got to shower and wind down, and then homework, which is no small thing either. So the stresses, I think, on kids these days are additive, because there's not only that, the extracurriculars, the academics, and then sometimes kids are out there working a job to either supplement the family income or so that they have some spending money. So they've got a lot of stresses on them. And then I saved the best for last, the social media, okay? And this is where not only am I already unpopular with the kids, I'm going to be unpopular with you now. Should be no TVs in the bedroom. No bedrooms should have a TV. And there are none in our house. Let's talk more about the other social media these days, the iPhones, the texting, Facebook, and all of that. I think it decreases their ability to focus and concentrate. In fact, one of my very dear friends, her husband teaches math in, I guess I would say, the greater Chicago area. It's in Northbrook or Skokie or somewhere. And he teaches 8th grade math, and he actually has to let his students sometimes take a 2-minute break so that they can look at their phones, because otherwise they're so anxious that they can't concentrate. I mean, it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. I don't think it's that bad here. I mean, it's just like, that is just like over the top. But that's kind of what it's come to. And I think, the 24/7 kind of ability for that, or questions about that? Okay, so let's talk about strategies to getting more sleep. It's important to establish a sanctuary for sleep. You know, as I tell my adult patients who come to see me, beds are for sleep and sex, okay? You can get the sex part here, but, you know, they're for sleep, okay? And, you know, they should be uncluttered, which is hard in this age group for most of them. I get that. I've got one of my own. And, you know, soothing colors, and, you know, you need to help them make it a place of their own where they're comfortable. And I was just speaking about this, but I think it's very important to establish guidelines for electronics. I've already said there should be no TVs in the bedroom. I think that cell phones should be down in their cradles, okay, at night, charging up. They don't need it as their alarm, okay? Buy an alarm clock, they're cheap, okay? And in our house, our daughter's, you know, she's a sophomore. Internet access is, you know, my husband's kind of a geeky kind of guy, so on a home server, he knows how to do that. I'm not kind of challenged in that respect, but, internet access for her is cut off at 9 o'clock. For instance, she should need access to the computer, she can get on ours. And why is it that they shouldn't have access to the electronics, especially those iPads and computers? Is because that white light and that blue wavelength are very, very stimulating. And it's meant to be that way because some people have to be looking at a computer all day long. But it's not good. So, rule of thumb, at least an hour, preferably 2 hours probably, but at least an hour before bedtime, they should not be looking at a computer screen. Okay. And it's also important to establish bedtime and wake up routines that are routines, okay? So have an established bedtime, more or less, and an established wake-up time. Of course, you know, it's kind of mandated during the school week. They have to get to school on time, but it shouldn't really appreciably change too much even for the weekend. And rule of thumb there is probably 2 hours at the outside. If they're typically getting up at 6, they shouldn't be sleeping later than 8, okay, or getting, you know, because, and it's actually the wake-up time that drives the bedtime more than anything else. So, in my insomniacs, it's the wake-up time that I want them to really concentrate on, even though they sometimes want to sleep later, okay? And so you gotta kind of, you know, if they're not going to bed until midnight, you do want them to be getting enough sleep, so you kind of gotta allow them a little shift there, but again, they shouldn't be getting up any more than a couple hours later than their usual time. Because what happens if you start letting them go to bed at midnight and then it's 1 o'clock, well, by Sunday night, they're gonna have trouble going to bed at a decent time like 10 o'clock so that they can get up for school. And it becomes a really vicious cycle for these kids, or for some of them anyway. And along with the light exposure, I've already talked about this to a degree with the computer screens, but sometimes be careful about ambient light. Like maybe there's a street light outside their bedroom window or something like that. You might want a blackout shade. Some kids who are really, really sensitive to light, sometimes maybe even wearing sunglasses the last couple of hours before they go to bed is a strategy that may help. Okay. And again, I think something else I really should have said in the beginning of talking about the strategies is that, you know, this needs to be a cooperative effort, and you need to work with your team. You can't make them fall asleep, okay? So it really needs to be a cooperative effort, and you need to engage them in the process. establish a realistic homework routine. Sometimes it's helpful, especially when you've got a really busy kid who's in sports and may have clubs and all the academics. Help them, maybe even on a Sunday night, they'll know what projects, exams, and the like they have coming due the following week. Sometimes it may be helpful to actually go through it and help them figure out when are they going to do this, when are they going to get it done, so that they can help learn to prioritize themselves. And because again, I think I've already said the all-nighters don't work, and that's just not going to be helpful for them. And I've talked about how stressful I think their lives are, so anything that we can do to help them reduce the stress can help. And that relates back to what I just said about helping them prioritize, if you can, but also, maybe it's if you have a daughter, maybe she needs to be laying out those clothes and figuring out what she's going to wear the night before, so she doesn't stand in front of the closet for half an hour, half asleep, trying to figure it out, when she should be eating and washing her face, and we won't talk about the makeup, but, and if your child is someone who's bringing their lunch to school, there may be parts of the lunch that they can get ready if they're responsible for making it. Maybe before they go to bed, they can get their backpack and everything cleaned up, just so that it's easier for them in the morning. And here's another one: restrict naps. If you have someone who's not able to go to bed until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, they have to get up at 6, maybe even if they push it till 7, that's still not enough sleep. So sometimes by the time they get home from school, all they want to do is sleep. If they're not falling asleep in class, okay, that happens too, okay? So if your child is somebody who does seem to really need a nap, you have to restrict the time. Probably not more than a half an hour on outside. 20 minutes would probably be more optimal in terms of a time, or a duration, and in terms of the time, before 5 p.m. Okay. Otherwise, if they're allowed to sleep later, that's going to make it more difficult for them to get to sleep at night. We develop during the day, or our wakefulness hours, something that we call sleep pressure. Okay, this pressure to fall asleep, and that pressure is relieved by a nap. And so then that pressure has to build up again. Okay, does that make sense? And we've probably all heard this before: increasing exercise. Getting some exercise does in fact help you sleep at night. So if they're not involved in sports, it can be helpful for them to be doing something, some physical activity. And I'm just amazed at how much our adolescents rely on sources of caffeine to keep awake during the day. I know one of my friend's daughters, I do pick them up on Friday to take them to school, and she's got that mug in her hand, okay? And it was from an adolescent that I found out, Joe, existed. You guys know what Joe is? Caffeinated water. Okay. Caffeinated water. I didn't even know it existed until a few years ago. And they really should not be having any kind of caffeine, I would say, probably after 4 p.m. And I actually personally had to take a harder line on it. My daughter, she's not interested. She doesn't like soda, so thankfully. But I really clamp down on sources of caffeine that she gets, because I just don't think they need it. And here again is somewhere where I become distinctly unpopular. Be a role model. We've all heard that before. And I think this was most poignantly illustrated to me when a few years ago, I saw this, I don't remember how old he was, 11, 12, 13, but he's having a lot of problems getting to sleep. And I took a really hard line with him. I said, you gotta get that TV out of your bedroom. I don't know if he had a gaming problem or what, but, and so he just looked over at his mom. So, does that mean you're gonna get the TV out of your bedroom too? And, you know, you gotta be a role model. It's not do as we say, it's they do what we do, okay? And along those same lines, do not enable poor sleep habits, okay? That's something that, it's easy to make excuses for them, but they really look to us to help them set boundaries. They're not miniature adults. They really still are kids, and they look to us to really set those boundaries. And if you make it firm, they'll fall in line. So, all that said, okay, if your child still has problems because they just can't seem to do this, okay, or if they are incorporating a lot of these strategies and seem to be getting better sleep, but they're still tired, there are other causes of sleepiness in teens, okay, and I say sleepiness, but sometimes some of these things also can present as insomnia and difficulty getting to sleep or staying asleep. And these include sleep apnea, periodic movements of sleep, phase delay syndrome, and narcolepsy. So let's just run through those quickly. Obstructive sleep apnea, which probably most of you have heard about this. I've seen, you may think, well, kids? Yeah, I have some 3-year-olds on CPAP, or the breathing machine, okay? It's happening in our pediatric population to a degree that certainly is surprising me. Symptoms are snoring, witnessed apneas, and that's where there are pauses in their breathing, or sometimes in kids it can be funny breathing, especially in younger kids, but in adolescents they're probably having apneas, okay, where they just out and out stop breathing. They may have difficulties with concentration and focus. Any child, adolescent who's being diagnosed with ADD, ADHD should really be evaluated for a sleep disorder. And that can also be then to daytime somnolence here, sleepiness, falling asleep in the classroom, needing a nap to get through their day. And then, and I've spoken about this earlier too, it can lead to a lot of behavior and mood issues. Okay, so if a lot of this is going on, then it's possible that they could have obstructive sleep apnea. Restless legs and periodic movements of sleep are something else that can cause a lot of problems, sometimes with getting to sleep, but then staying asleep. And restless leg syndrome is something that you feel when you're awake, and it's kind of described as a creepy crawly sensation in the legs, which is relieved by movement. And I could tell you that adults have a hard time sometimes articulating exactly what that feeling is, so children have even a harder time, and sometimes, you know, it can be an achiness as well. So if your child has a lot of growing pains, it could actually be restless legs. The kind of a sleep portion of restless legs is something else. They're actually distinct syndromes, but kind of think about it as the awake portion and the sleep portion. And the sleep portion is periodic movements of sleep, which are little leg twitches, or they can be big leg twitches, okay, or movements, or kicks, that are occurring during sleep. And while restless legs is more likely to cause difficulty initiating sleep, maintaining sleep is usually caused by periodic movements of sleep. Okay, and people have periodic movements of sleep, but the converse is not true. So they may have no symptoms of restless legs, but people with periodic movements of sleep may have just leg kicks and not be aware of it. You know, so if their beds are, if they're like rolling dervishes in bed, you know, that might be a tip off that there's a leg movement problem going on.
Okay, welcome to winter. Right, I spent much of the morning trying to figure out whether we were going to have a concert at all. And of course I was like, please let us have a concert, because 2 years ago, you know, we didn't, and I had to postpone it. And it was really inconvenient, and also it sort of takes the wind out of your sails. You've been working at a crescendo, building a building to put the concert together. I was really glad that administration sort of agreed that we should probably go ahead and do it as long as we gave you guys enough lead time. And of course you all ended up here and you're all safe, and I'm very, very happy about that. So welcome not only to winter, but to the winter concert of the OHS bands. My name is Nick Lane, I'm the director here and music teacher here, and we have a lot to share with you today. This is going to be our first concert since we've had 3 bands at the high school. So instead of the 2 that we've had before, now we have 3. We have the symphonic band, which is all freshmen except for 2 students. We have wind ensemble, and then we have our top group, which is symphonic winds and percussion. We also have some guest artists today, where it says in your program additional percussionists. Those are percussionists who are in the percussion ensemble who are filling in the percussion portion of the program for us today, and really doing a fine job with that, so we're very excited about that as well. So, great afternoon of music. I noticed it stopped snowing, so we cross our fingers that the conditions will be a little better when we get out there after this. And we're going to start it off with something with a little bit more of a fall feel, not so much a winter. But this first song is called, this piece is called Headless Horseman. It's by Timothy Broge. actually really looking forward to this concert today because we're playing three of my very, very favorite ballad-type tunes or slow songs or low down-tempo pieces, however you want to think about them. And this is one of them. It's a really beautiful piece called Country Wildflowers. I hope for some of you, some of the music is familiar. That means you have a great musical memory if you've been around for the last few years. When a piece of music is really great and there's lots of great things to teach, and it's really fun to make music with that music, I like to use it again and again. Of course, not with the same students. I sort of wait anxiously until it's like, okay, no one in the band has played this one, I can finally pull it back out. So you get an opportunity to hear some of the things you may have heard before. Certainly you guys are hearing things that you've performed before. And in the case of that last one, you're probably hearing, wow, they really did some things very nicely that maybe we didn't quite get to. But yeah, they're really doing a good job. This next one you may have heard already at the last concert last year, I think we did it. That's called Joyful Journey. And since all these students, except for a couple, are freshmen, it's new to them, but it's really a great piece. I've always really liked it. Robert Sheldon, and this will be their last piece for the concert, Joyful Journey. now on stage we have our wind ensemble, our 4th hour band. They'll be presenting to you probably another one of my favorites as far as slow pieces go, this Willows of Winter. I've named 2 concerts Willows of Winter now. Some of you might notice that, hopefully not too many of you. I like it so much. We've had an awesome time making music. The whole goal has been to, with having 3 groups, has been to maintain the level of the first 2 groups, Symphonic Band and Wind Ensemble, which we had all these years leading up to this, and then actually add a level on top of that. So this group really had a huge challenge in that they had to try to maintain the level of what was our top group in previous years, and I think they've done a fabulous job with that. They have been awesome to work with every day. They've played some really beautiful music, and we've made some really great music together, and I hope you'll enjoy today. Willows of Winter.
Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, March 2nd, 2015 at 6 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Oregon Village Board, which I'd like to call to order and request roll call, please.
Bollig,
Here.
Staten,
Here.
Carpenter,
Here.
Poole, Brett Howard,
Here.
Boudreaux, Grenier.
Here.
Everybody? Okay. So item 3 is public appearances, and item 3A is swearing in of police officer Kyle Shuey. We'll start that in just a minute. I'd like to make a few comments. Kyle is a local young man, went to school here. I knew him at both the middle school and high school. I've told him I won't tell any stories about that, this evening at least, maybe later on at the department, but not tonight. But Kyle went through our Explorers, was highly respected by our police department as well as by the people at school and myself as the middle school principal. He did go with me and other students and staff to New York City and Rochester, New York at one time for a leadership conference. He did an excellent job on that and also did real nice follow up when that was done. So as you can see, I'm especially excited to have Kyle join our force because he's local. I've known him a long time. It'll be great to see the commitment that he'll bring to our department, and I know the rest of the officers will break him in very well. So if you want to meet me up here, Kyle, and we'll do the oath. So if you raise your right hand, please repeat after me. I, Kyle M. Shuey, do solemnly swear that I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America.
I, Kyle M. Shuey, do solemnly swear that I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America.
The Constitution and laws of the state of Wisconsin.
The Constitution and laws of the state of Wisconsin.
The charter, laws, and ordinances of the Village of Oregon.
The charter, laws, and ordinances of the Village of Oregon.
The rules and regulations of the Village of Oregon Police Department.
The rules and regulations of the Village of Oregon Police Department.
And the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
And the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a sworn officer of the Oregon Police Department.
And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a sworn officer of the Oregon Police Department.
I will assume my duties as of March 2nd, 2015.
I will assume my duties as of March 2nd, 2015.
You are done. Good job. So
Congratulations, give me a second. Thanks. Welcome.
Doug Brett Howard, congratulations.
Johnny Grenier, congratulations.
All right, sounds good.
welcome, Kyle.
Okay.
And we'll do pictures, so whoever would like to come up for pictures with Kyle, and do the emergency if you like.
Welcome.
So does stand.
Oh, nice. Oh, come on. You want
Oh, sure. Very well. Yeah. Anything else?
Okay, all set?
He just signed the line. Well, we can always find it. Don't worry about it.
So wait just a second for the folks to head out.
Jeff.
And Jeff's here.
Got it. Thanks.
The trail.
Gentleman in the suit right there.
Okay, item B is discussion with school board candidate Steve Zock. If you'd like to come to the microphone, please, Steve. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will be short because I'm just got a call from Andy Moyland. I'm the quorum at a committee meeting that started at 6, so I'll be there. Just to start off with, you couldn't have hired a better police officer. Just a terrific young man. I feel old. I was telling Steve before the meeting that I coached Kyle back when he was a freshman in high school and have known the Shuey family forever. Played ball with his dad and his uncles and that. So he's just a great young man. So great job. That's a good hire. I'm Steve Zock. I'm on the school board right now. In April, I'll finish my 16th year on the board. My term is up. I represent one of the 3 seats in the Village of Oregon, and I have decided to run for re-election in hoping of serving another 3 years on the school board. Currently, our board, as it sits now, I'm the only board member that has served one term, more than one term. We're very inexperienced, and I think it would be fair to say that we've had our troubles this year because of inexperience, and that was a factor in my deciding to run again. We have a lot of tough issues that are going to be placed before us in the next year. We are faced with a budget from the state of Wisconsin proposed that if it goes through as proposed will create a $500,000 deficit at the very beginning of our budgetary process. We'll have another $250,000 in additional premium costs for health insurance, and if we want to even talk about a cost of living increase for our employees, that takes our total deficit to $1.2 million. So that's a problem that needs experience. I've been through the 3 of these situations before, in which we've had to face some budget deficits because of state funding, and so I've worked through that process, and I think my expertise will help in that regard. The village and the school district have had a long history of working together in this community. Predated my involvement on the board, and Steve, I know you were involved greatly with the transfer of the Oregon pool to the school district and the joint cooperation in terms of developing that. I was, as a layperson, involved in that, but since I've been on the board, we've worked on a number of projects together, and that would include working on Lerner Park and the purchase of that for the village, and the school district was instrumental in helping finance that and taking a portion of Lerner Park with an agreement to sell back down the road if we weren't going to use that. So we worked a joint agreement on that. We worked really well together in transferring J.C. Park East to the district so that we could develop that. And we're in the process right now of developing that for a park. And I know Brian Bussler and Andy Weiland and Mike and the village presidents have met on a regular basis to discuss issues that are in common with each other. Sitting from my standpoint, one of the areas where I think we can do better in working together is economic development, because both of us have jointly a common goal of growth in the community, both industrial, business, and residential, but a controlled growth, because if we don't grow our tax base on a regular basis, we run into problems financially because our costs increase. And so we need to make this an attractive community so that people come and visit it. And from the village's standpoint, you guys have done a tremendous job of making this community attractive with our parks and recreation and our planning. It is a place that is attractive to come to for those who are seeking to move to the Madison area. One thing that we hear a lot about is that folks who are looking for a new place to live shop in market districts and communities, and they basically go out and interview communities, and one factor in that is how are the schools and how is the school district perceived. We have on a regular basis folks who come around and we're one stop on their shop in terms of interviewing. And so we need to make sure that we're attractive for ourselves, for our own growth, but for the community's growth and for your budget as well. And so that will be something that we need to especially look at in the future. I drive on Highway 51. I represent the city of Beaver Dam, so I'm up there on a regular basis. And one of the things you notice when you drive on the way back from Beaver Dam to Madison is there's a billboard that says City of Verona, and it's marketing the City of Verona by sign. I don't think we need to do that. I think we sell ourselves with what's going on in this community. And one of the primary things that can be marketed is the fact that the taxpayers of this school district have just by over 60% committed to an investment in the future in this community in a building referendum, which is a pretty spectacular feat. It's one of the largest referendums ever passed in the state. And we were able to finance that because over 10 years, we had been planning to go to referendum and created a debt cliff for our long-term debt. And we're able to plug that $55 million into that gap. And we are strong enough in our financials that when we went to market, we had the highest bond rating that we could get. And we received a bid of 2.83% for our long-term debt over 20 years, which is just phenomenal. We had an amazing bidding session for our long-term debt when it went to sale in January. We had 8 different firms bidding on our finance obligation, which says a lot about how strong we were perceived in the market. And we had a total of 12 bids. They had to extend the auction period for that. And so that was the result of a board over 10 years consciously making financial decisions to get us in that place. But it says a lot for our community, and it's a marketing tool that we can have to sell our district when we're looking at bringing businesses into this community and residents. The other thing that's going on is we're starting a process of long-term planning. It's something that we do on occasion. The board, over 10 years, actually dating back to 1992, has drafted position papers on where we're going to go educationally over a period of time. It's a strategic planning process. Since I've been on the board, we've written 3 of those papers and had a strategic process, and about 8 years ago we held a community forum. We called it the 2020 Visioning, where we had members from all constituent groups, including the municipalities that our district encompasses, come and for 2 days talk about our district and share a vision for that. I am working with our visioning committee right now in terms of outlining a new strategic plan, taking some of the threads that are currently present in our school district and initiatives that we are doing and taking that forward 5 to 7 years. One of those is a personalized learning initiative that's changing the paradigm in the schools and working on a personalized basis with each child, developing a plan for them. It's really successful. We have districts from across Wisconsin, across the region, and we had a couple countries come in and take a look at some of the initiatives that we're doing because of the strategic planning process we've done. I was up at the district office a week ago, and we had Madison School District brought their one of their elementary schools in to tour our elementary schools to see what we're doing. That's one of the threads, but we have 2 or 3 different threads that are out, not quite developed, and we're in the process of putting those together. I put together an outline of a proposed plan of how that looks, and we're working through that as a board. And the plan right now is that in the summer, and we're looking for August, we're going to have another 2-day community forum where we will invite interested community members from across all constituent bases to come in and again dream and vision about what this district looks like. And you put that type of process and that type of plan on top of a commitment from this community to invest $55 million, that says a lot about where we're headed as a community and things that you as a village board can sell when you're looking at bringing businesses, industries, and community members in. One of the things that has me excited and why after 16 years I'm committed to another 3 years is to take that process and see it through, because I think that will take us a long way ahead of what other districts are doing around this state and again make us a leader in the field, not only in our region but across the Midwest. So I'm really excited. I hope I get reelected and because I really would like to see that through and see where that vision heads and be part of that visioning process with the community. So we will be talking with Steve and Mike about getting village representatives at that conference when we hold it. So I think it's important. So
Great.
Thank you for the time that you've afforded me to outline that really quick. And with that, I'll go make a quorum.
Okay, good.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Okay, we're still on public appearances, item 3, and we're on item C, which is discussion with Sue Rising with Decision Makers LLC regarding services to assist in the police chief search and other possible services. And there is possible action tonight of entering into an agreement. So, Sue, welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We're set.
Would you like me to start?
You bet.
All right.
I have some comments I'll make, but I thought I'd let you go ahead and say what you'd like to say, and I'll talk a bit about the meeting last week.
Great. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Well, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm kind of excited about this to help the village kind of move forward in selecting a new police chief and the process that you all have kind of chosen and outlined to do that. You know, it seems to me that any community, when you think about quality of life, the quality of life often is tied right to the police department. And if your residents feel safe in the community, if they feel safe in their homes and their businesses, their places of worship, that's often a direct result of how they feel about the police department and about their own sense of security. And I think it's important today, especially if people feel very strongly about how their children are protected in the schools or on the parks or the playgrounds. And so it seems to me the village is starting to move forward here in a good direction with the village police department and some of the ups and downs that you've had over the last couple of years, and things seem to become quite stabilized. And now, you know, turning the page and moving forward in the next chapter, I think, is really a good idea. So as my understanding is what I've been hired to do is to gather information for you so that you can make a good decision that's going to be in front of you in a number of months, and the police commission can make a good decision about who they should hire as a police chief, and to kind of capture the thoughts and ideas, maybe even the beliefs of the rank and file of the police department. Look for where they agree on things and maybe where they differ, but look for some trends of characteristics or things that they want to ensure the next police chief has, so that you can continue to grow the village and nurture the police department along the way. And then to give you feedback verbally, as I understand it, of the trends that they might have come up with, some of the key things they thought were important. Make sure that that is infused into the police chief's job description, so that your advertising, when you go out to advertise, that mirrors a lot of the actual police position description. And then to kind of ensure that their voices are heard throughout the process, as the process moves forward and the applicants are screened and culled, and you semi-finalists and finalists, and then when you get around to finally making a decision on who you think should be the next village police chief. And then, of course, obviously along the way, I'm going to report back into you, report back to the police commission, ensure that the bodies stay informed, and also that you have input as to what's going on and how it's taking shape. And I'll assist in screening the applicants and any other duties that the village administrator and the president of the board wish for me to do as we go along the way. So with that, I welcome any questions that you might have or any thoughts anybody wants to share with me.
Okay, I would like, thanks. I'm going to make a couple comments, and we'll open up for whatever we have here. But I was at the meeting last week where we introduced Chief Reisling. She is chief at the UW-Madison. She's done that for 20 years, is that right?
24 next week.
That's right. You were with Dale for 20 years.
That's right.
Yeah. So Mike and I attended that with Chief Reisling, and I can say that went very well. And I did receive some feedback from Dale about the department, how they saw that afterwards. He said he received nothing but extremely positive reviews from all levels of the organization about yesterday's meeting. He said in the time he's been here, he's not seen the entire group so energized and excited. And they were at that meeting. And it goes back to, like Chief Reisner said, she'll be an advocate for them, because she will interview our officers, determine what characteristics they want of their chief, and be sure that gets carried through and the questions are asked and in the interviews. And we did something like this at our church a couple years ago when we hired an administrator, and it had a real positive effect on how that all took place. And I just really support this process, and I'm very pleased to have Sue before us with this proposal. And I don't do this often, but I would like to be the one that makes the motion to approve this, to show my support for it and bring it on the table. So we then need a second.
Second.
Thank you. We got several. So, any questions anyone might have?
See, just a clarification, I'm being picky here. Actually, Sue's going to interview all the police department employees, not just
That's
officers.
right.
So-
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. And that is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
My only question is, I was looking over the agreement, and this isn't to do with the decision to hire Sue. I think that's fantastic, and I'm glad to hear there's so much support for it. But in terms of the technicalities of the agreement, have you had a chance to review that with Matt?
Yes.
Does Matt have any questions or concerns about that agreement?
He prepared it.
Oh, well, there you go then. Thank you.
Was the dollar amount reduced from what it originally had been?
The dollar amount is the same, and the only thing that we've done is we've capped it at 5,000. So the chief would do her work on behalf of the village, and if it got up to be $5,000, then she'd have to come back and get additional authority. The original thought was 4,000, but then when we added the chief's not going to sit in, besides helping us select the candidates, Sue's going to sit in the interviews, which is going to add some cost to the process.
Thank you.
And that actually goes back to something that, talking about Matt, that Matt really stressed, that he wanted the chief to be at the beginning, and at the end, we're hiring the new chief, that Sue's involved in the entire process. So,
And that was what the officers and the other staff were so excited about when we met with them, that was someone who understands what they want and who has a stake in helping make that happen. And like I said, I've seen that happen. It worked really well. So we're pleased that you're available to do this. So other questions or comments? Anything? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement with Chief Reisling to lead this process. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? We're all set. We'll look forward to hearing back from you at various times.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Have a
Thanks.
good evening.
and Sue, if you want to wait 1 second, Steve will sign the 2 agreements. We'll give you one back for your file.
Great, thank you.
If you can hold 1 second, please. Save my sticky there. I think I've made that thing about 20 times already. I'll take that sticky out. Good. Thanks, Sue.
Thanks so much, appreciate it.
Good.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we'll go to item 4, approval of minutes. We have minutes from February 16th, 2015, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I was here and I wasn't here.
So you're not on the
Well,
list?
I was here, but I was also absent.
Okay, we will get that fixed. Any other additions or corrections?
Oh, okay.
So were you here or not, Darlene?
I was here.
Okay.
Just listed as absent in the minutes.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Okay, anything else?
We'll fix that, darling.
I get a little nervous when you start making comments like that I need to come over there and make sure you're all right.
But
Don't scare me
I
like
looked
that.
at it, I thought, well, I don't know.
Okay, so we have the motion second for minutes from February 16th, 2015. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is item 5, discussion and possible action regarding approving Danecom invoice in the amount of $3,758 for July through December 14th. And if we approve this, that will be added to the amount of the vouchers in our next item, which is number 6. So,
Sorry.
no, go ahead. Maybe that'll help us get a motion.
Well,
Okay.
I'll make the motion for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll move to pay the voucher.
Okay. You have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
So like the last time, I struggled with what to do with this because, I don't know if you had a chance to read everything in the packet. Right now, the Danecom system is down. We're actually still running with the Dane County Legacy System, which is the old dispatching system. I went to another meeting last week about Danecom, and I came away not really deciding what to do with this, but the more I thought about it, on Friday I sort of decided I felt we need to pay this for a couple of reasons. At the meeting last week, Josh, who is Joe Parisi's chief of staff, indicated that the county is going to borrow, I think, close to additional $6 million for the radio system. So the radio system started off at $30 million. A couple years ago, the county switched companies and went with a $18 million system, and there's a lot of questions raised at that point. Well, how can an $18 million system be as good as a $30 million? Well, as it turned out, it's not. And so it's possible by the time this is all said and done, we'll be pretty close to the $30 million. And the reason why I think we should pay this, even though we're not getting any service from Daycom at this point, is a couple of reasons. First off, I believe that Jill Parisi, based on what Josh said at the meeting, is dedicated to getting this fixed. As he said at the meeting, Joel's as tired as anyone dealing with Daycom since he's been county executive. He wants to get this behind us. And secondly, we have no other choice. We need to keep moving ahead. So what this invoice does, it continues to pay for the lease for the towers that we have, and also for the staff working on implementing the system. So I think we should go ahead and pay it. I was going to wait. We're having another meeting next week, Wednesday, about it, but I'm not sure I'm going to learn anything new, and I feel that we should pay it. That's my recommendation.
So I think your second point, my opinion, your second point was your best point from my perspective, is we don't have a choice, right? This is going to happen, and if we withhold payment at this point, all we're going to wind up with is a balloon payment down the road, right? I mean,
the only technical thing, Jeff, is that we signed an agreement for a radio system, and we're being charged for it, but there is no radio system. I mean, you could make a technical legal point, and I tried to say that at the meeting last week. I said, we're asking to be paid something that we're not actually, they're not in compliance with the agreement that we signed.
Yeah.
But I just feel we have no choice. We have to get this thing implemented. I think I'd be a lot more nervous if I felt the county was not making an effort. They're trying to resolve this, and they're bending over backwards now trying to, that's why, if you've got a chance to read this, they're trying to decide if they should implement it in phases, they should do it, completely, and they're trying, what do the communities want? There's a lot of concern about the phase-in approach that things could be actually worse. So there's a good chance at the end of the day the whole thing is just going to be implemented in 2016. But we'll find that out probably within the next couple months.
So as you look forward, and these kinds of this agenda item is going to come up again and again. But every time it comes up, we're going to be $3,000 more invested, or $4,000 more invested, or I don't know what the total is to this point. And as well as other surrounding communities.
Right, yep.
Of Dane County, so we're not the only ones.
Oh, no.
Do you see the issues changing much?
The only two issues, or the only issue that's really hanging out there now is, does a county implement the system over phases, or do they wait and implement in one fell swoop in 2016? And that date in 2016 is not nailed down yet. And I may actually know more after I go to the meeting next week. Some of it has to do with the analysis of implementing it. It's somewhat complicated. But there are actually some places on the outskirts of the county that the paging system doesn't work. They're actually having to use cell phones to talk among each other. So, I mean, it's actually not a good situation. And yet, those are the communities that, based on that meeting, are actually paying for the system because they want to get the thing implemented. They know that's the solution, is to get Daycom implemented. So, but the ironic thing is, but when this thing is implemented, we're probably made a large circle back to what the original radio system was, and unfortunately, we spent all this time now getting backed up to that point.
Yeah.
So, but again, I give Joe Parisi a lot of credit that his goal is to get this thing finished, and again, that's why I feel comfortable implementing or recommending we pay this.
And wasn't this ultimate? I mean, if we back this all the way up, wasn't this a suggestion from Homeland Security at some point with regards to anti-terrorism and the sort of the state of the world that we're in right now, to have one radio station?
Well, we have to narrow band this. This is a federal mandate that we have to do this, and it started 5-6 years ago, and we keep getting an extension from the federal government. So at some point they may start finding us, I suppose, the county. But I think the fact that the county can certainly demonstrate that they're making an effort to get this thing resolved.
Yeah.
Good question, Jerry.
Yeah, I could just add a little bit more history to what Mike said. The Parisi administration was handed this radio system by the previous administration. And the problem arose when it went out to bid. A low bid was accepted. And Motorola used to have the bid and used to do an impeccable job of maintaining and operating the radio system. Ironically now, the cost of the new system is going to be exactly where Motorola bid to begin with.
It may be a little bit less, Jerry.
Yeah.
It may.
But it's going to be close.
It's going to be
So,
close. Yeah.
you know, and again, that's why everybody is so committed to making this work, because this has been going on now, what, 3 years, 4 years?
I've been going to meetings for the last 5 or 6. So.
Yeah, a long time. And so this is a problem nobody wants, but the players are committed to making it work now, and I'm sure it will.
I think that the big difference is that Jerry's making a good point. I mean, it wasn't really Parisi's administration that started this. The previous administration, and it got personal, unfortunately.
Right.
That's not what's going on now. We're past that. I mean, people just want to get the thing resolved and implemented. So
That's an investment in safety that has to happen, and we need to keep up with it, I think, so. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion second to approve the Daycom invoice in the amount of $3,758 for July through December 2014. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6 is approval of vouchers, and that amount will be added to the voucher list, which now makes it $4,062,913.82.
I'll second that motion for discussion.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a couple. Again, this list is a lot smaller now that we do this every week.
just for you, Jerry.
Just for me. So this is a breeze now. It's probably just descriptions I'm having a problem with, but at the City of Madison on 1532, shared traffic signals, what is that?
So they maintain our traffic signals,
Oh, okay.
and so we pay them.
They mill us once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's
Yeah.
just a semi-annual billing then?
Yep.
Okay, that explains that. And then the only other question I have, and this is probably gonna be the same type of response, but the Bank of Broadhead for a Jefferson Street CD, is that a certificate of deposit?
It is. So that we collect developer fees from the developers, but we have for at some point fixing Jefferson Street. Now this is in front of Bergamont and Alpine Meadows, and so Lisa opened up a CD last week, right? Or went to open up a CD there.
It was existing money at a different bank, and I got a better rate to reinvest it at Bank of Broadhead, so I moved basically.
Okay, so these are developer fees that at some point in the future, we're gonna
Right.
we're gonna invest in the community.
Yeah, I mean, that's we have the same thing with Lincoln Road. So some of that, if we could actually get a better rate sometimes on a longer CD, we take that with those because we know we're not going to use that money for quite some time yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have motion second to approve vouchers in the amount of $4,062,913.82. Roll call, please.
Grenier,
Yes.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Carpenter. Yes. Staton,
Yes.
Brethauer,
Yes.
Bollig,
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. Item 7 is community input. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll go to item 8, proclamations and announcements. A is any board comments at this time? Staff comments, item B?
No.
Okay. Quiet group tonight. Item 9, communication and miscellaneous business. Item A, discussion with Chamber of Commerce Director and Village Administrator regarding the village paying for half of Eller's $2,500 fee to analyze TIF assistance for a possible hotel on Park Street. This would be a TIF 4 expense. And there's a note that the hotel developer will pay the other half of the fee and wants to first determine if the hotel project will pass the but-for test before discussing the project with the board. This would go to Mike Harrigan at Ellers, and there is background information in the board packet, therefore online for this item, so.
I think
You're
it's
on.
pretty self-explanatory what's in the packet, unless anybody had any questions.
So Judy and I have brought down the elevations for the hotel. That is the elevation that went to the Planning Commission, just for conceptual discussion. This is for the 60-room hotel.
Right.
The one that the developer is currently proposing is 70 rooms plus a banquet hall, which is not. The one change that Judy mentioned, reminded me today, is that the Plan Commission wanted brick on the front of the building, which is why there's brick on this elevation. So it's a little unusual. Typically, the developer would come in and be talking to the board, but he really wants to see what Mike Harrigan's response is to his numbers and see if his project passes the but-for test. So,
And the developers right now are working with an equity company to make sure that the project is within line of the fees and things. So they are doing their own, like, but-for test also.
Is there a precedent where the village has participated in partnering to pay for the?
yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Is it a short story or a long story? Or are there several stories?
It's, as I think I always tell board members, every TIF deal, every TIF project is different. If a village board, or generally speaking, a city council wants a project, sometimes they'll cover the developer, the fee to analyze it. Sometimes they split it with the developer. Sometimes they include it as part of what they give the developer at the end of the offer. So I don't think this is that unusual.
I mean, it'd be okay if you wanted to prove the whole thing, and that's what TIF is for.
Actually, this will save us some time, because probably the first thing we do, if we got it, is we turn it over to the consultant.
Yeah, I'm going to call for a motion so we get this on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion.
Oh, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a lot more complicated than the Growmore, thing that we looked at last week.
Right. This, again, as Mike indicated, every TIF agreement is different, and this one's going to evolve. If we decide to go forward with it, it's going to evolve into a number of different things, probably.
I mean, like I said, sometimes, Jeff, you could tell the developer, if you want the analysis to happen, you pay for it up front. You may get the money back, as part of the TIF incentive at the end. But I think the fact that the village, I think this is like the fourth or fifth time we've tried to get a hotel down in this area, and it would be a great addition to the village as well as to TIF 4, that I think it's money well spent to split it with them.
Have we done an analysis in the past for the development of a hotel in this area?
As far as the value, or?
Has an analysis been done over the last 3 or 4 offerings about relative to the financial viability of a hotel development in this area?
So we got close. The last time we got close was right before. Well, actually, it was in the middle of the recession, and that developer wanted the village to be one of the main investors, because they were having a hard time finding investors at that point of the recession. So we had Mike Harrigan run the numbers on it, and actually it cash flowed, and I think by the 4th or 5th year it was cash flowing pretty well. But the big difference is that the village is going to be one of the big investors in the project, and the board said we couldn't do that.
So, and I'm just trying to understand.
So, okay, then I do want to say that we did a market study 4 years ago by IDM.
3 years.
Or 3 years ago, thank you. And so it does show that a hotel, 60 units or 60 rooms and higher will be successful in the village.
Wasn't that study on the website for a long time?
It still is, I think.
I think it's still on there, I think.
Yeah, it's on the village's website.
Yeah, it's a good study.
Yep.
So how much did the village have to pay for that study? Or did the village pay for that study?
We paid, I don't remember off the top of my head.
And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to understand what the village gets as a return on the investment of $2,500, besides moving this project forward a little bit. Is there a document that the village then winds up with that can be used in future inquiries if this deal turns out to not work? Has the village invested monies to this point that have come out of the TIF district for similar type analyses that have ultimately not gone anywhere?
That's a good question from Mike Harrigan, whether or not you could take this analysis, Jeff, and let's say this doesn't happen and another 70-unit hotel came in, if you could say, well, it's the same thing. I'd have to ask them about that. I'm not sure. It's a good question, but I'm not sure you can transfer it that easily.
I would think I'd be doubtful if we get a similar offer. I mean, it's, the chances of getting an offer that would be identical to a previous one would be very remote, I would think.
Well, the other ones have not gone through because of the lack of investors. And that's been, and also being able to work with the properties. It's been a series of reasons why it hasn't happened, so.
So, can I look at this $2,500 as an investment in future development in Oregon? Or is this $2,500 an expense that may or may not return to the taxpayer?
Well, certainly if the hotel happens, it's a great, easy investment and get the hotel here. I don't want to mislead you and tell you that if we spend this money, that we can take that study and transfer it to another possible hotel project if this doesn't happen. I can't sit here and tell you that, Jeff. But do I think it's a good investment? Yes, I do.
It seems that it would help to guarantee the objectivity of information if we pay for half the cost of the study.
Well, even if
Yes or no?
even if the developer pays, our analyst does the review. Mike Harrigan for
Independent
Elders
of-
works on behalf of the village.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we don't approve paying the $2,500 or paying half, is the developer still willing to go forward with the deal, or is that going to be the end of the deal?
Oh, I'm sure he'll still go forward. But it'd be nice so that we knew what kind of TIF money's out there and what they could work with. And that's why we're asking to do this, so that we can do the analysis, because it's the village that wants the analysis for this. The investment company's already working on an equity, with an equity company right now, doing their own analysis. So, being that they're putting in the 70 rooms plus the banquet room, that's what the village really has always wanted, as well as the chamber, to have that facility and that banquet room so that we can, there's no place for me to hold an annual dinner except Bergamot. And then over at Gorman's, which was, as everybody knows, 2 years ago, we couldn't get another person in there if we wanted to. So we do need the space, and the chamber would love to have that, as well as the hotel. I mean, we get so many calls. There's 53 weddings right now this year at Bergamot. There's so much going on. Tracti's calling all the time saying, hey, where can, hotel, where can you send people?
Yeah.
We get calls all the time on that.
Yeah, I'd love to see a hotel in town.
So it's just the idea of I've been working with these guys for a year, and I can't guarantee it's going to happen, but, it's a lot closer than a year ago.
This is the closest we've been, absolutely. Yep.
So, Mike and I have been talking with these gentlemen for over a year. And we do have a builder who has a signed contract with them, and there is a deal on the land. So it is a lot going on.
Mike, can I, if I said that generally this would be a village expense, would that be accurate?
Right, I mean, typically what that'd be a board decision. So
No, but I'm
what Judy's
saying-
talking about is we would get the more detailed numbers from their financial analyst or whomever, and then that would be presented to the board, and the board have to decide. I mean, typically on some of the TIF deals, Lisa and I can certainly run the numbers. They're easier, but on a hotel, it's a little more complicated, and so.
Right,
so-
I probably didn't.
No, I think you asked the right question.
I didn't phrase my question
The
correctly.
village probably would at some point have to pay to have the numbers looked at before you gave them TIF money. Yes.
Right, and because these TIF deals are all different,
Mhm.
sometimes the developer gets involved in paying this fee and sometimes not. And in this case, they're going to be paying half of it.
Well, and sometimes they're not
They agreed to pay half
they're not complicated because then we can just run the numbers. I mean, sometimes they're pretty basic.
Right.
And then sometimes they're not. It's
My point is that the developer wouldn't have to necessarily pay any of this fee.
the board could take the position that if you want your project to go ahead, you have to pay this. I mean, you could
Right.
do that.
Could.
You could.
So to add on to what I think Jerry's saying, if the developer didn't bring this to us right now, we did the regular process we usually do, like with Growmore, we'd pay the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because they'd come and make a proposal, make a request, and we'd send it to Ellis to analyze, so we'd pay the $2,500. This is just starting that up front, and I think this shows shows that we're serious about getting this done, and I think we are. We'd have done it early if we'd have had a good deal. We just didn't, as Mike said. I think it affirms the work that Judy and Mike have done, and they've worked hard on this to make this happen. It would be another huge plus for our community if we could get a hotel here, and probably have a significant impact on that part of town, I would guess.
And unfortunately, they are building, Staybridge is building one in Mount Horeb, and Mount Horeb is just handing everything, just being wonderful to them and just saying, hey, come with us, come with us. So, and there's 2 other cities too. So that's why I'm trying to make Oregon look wonderful to them so that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. We want the hotel. Chamber wants the hotel.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
And it sounds like a lot of the groundwork has been laid already, so.
Right.
This is kind of the next step. So I personally have no problem paying the $1,250. I think it's money well spent.
What about 2,500? Because I think that's what's on the table, isn't it?
Would be half.
Right. It's half, and one thing I want to emphasize, I'm assuming what I'll do is, if it gets passed, we pay half of the $2,500. And, I would tell that to Mike, that he's got that much money, and then, and not to go any further than that. Even if he gets to the point where he's having to go back and forth with them, and he's having to put more time into them, tell him it's capped at $2,500, and then come back to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought, we could probably get a lot of work done and a lot of the analysis done for that amount of money.
Yeah. So our share is $1,250, is that right?
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
the developer's gonna pay half
Sure.
of it, right.
Understood. Other questions or comments?
I have a question, I'm in favor of this all the way, don't get me wrong, but I have a question about assuming this project goes forward, will that require any major improvements on Park Street that are in our capital improvement plan?
It's in the draft capital improvement plan you saw last week.
It's in there?
It's in there, and we're actually gonna talk about that in more detail at the March 16th board meeting, Jerry.
Just want to make sure that's covered.
Yep.
Because we're going to have some major upgrades, I'm sure.
So Park Street is one of the projects that we could use the increment from the new hotel to help pay to resurface, reconstruct.
Fantastic.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion second to approve the village paying half of our financial consultant's fee of $2,500. We'd pay $1,250 to analyze TIF assistance for a possible hotel on Park Street. This would be a TIF 4 expense. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Judy.
you.
Thanks for moving this product forward.
Thank you. One step forward.
Keep up the good work.
Item B, discussion of possible action regarding purchasing police squad from Kaiser Ford in the amount of $26,900. The funding is in our 2015 budget. We approved it during that budget process, and information from Chief Burke says that there are not a lot of black Ford Explorers left. I think he got the one that is available in the area, beat some other departments too. I'm not sure exactly how he worded that, but it sounded like Dale.
He did.
So
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
Just a question on the vehicle list on the back.
Mhm.
How long have we had 10 vehicles?
How long have you had 10 vehicles?
Yeah, 10 vehicles. Is that,
I'd have to ask. I'm not sure,
Is that
Jerry.
pretty much the standard amount? Have we increased?
Well,
the fleet?
we're down actually a vehicle right now.
Okay.
So what will happen is that if the board approves the motion, this vehicle will go into the main patrol. The Dodge Charger Squad 113 will become the new chief's squad. Because right now, Dale sold or took to auction, I think, 3 vehicles, Jerry, and he's just driving his personal vehicle right now.
Right.
So we're actually down a vehicle at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly when we got up to this amount, but
Well, I'm impressed. We've got a fleet with the lowest mileage I ever remember.
well, we're trying to do that rotation. We go, we go one squad, 2 every third year we're
Right.
buying 2 squads, and I think it's keeping us on track, so.
Seems to. No,
Mhm.
it looks good. I just couldn't remember
Yep.
if we've increased the fleet or not.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? We have motion second to approve purchase of a police squad from Kaiser Ford, the amount of $26,900. Funding is in the 2015 budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item C, Oregon press release.
That's in there for your information.
was about an arrest of,
There's actually two of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not on that right now on the next one, so. Any questions on that?
Why is this significant to include in the packet,
This is
in particular?
in the packet.
Why is this brought to our particular attention? Is there-
I think I probably brought this up a while ago. Any significant incidents down at the, that involving the police department, I just ask that the board be advised. If you don't think it's
No,
noteworthy,
just wondering.
we can,
I mean, I was thinking about putting it actually in your mailboxes, but I just thought that this way, I know people read our packets, Doug, so I thought people could see it. I think I like that Dale's doing these.
Yeah, okay.
I do too, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it bothered me, if you stop down to get a cup of coffee or something and somebody says, hey, what about blah, blah, blah?
And you had no idea
it's
that
like,
happened.
and you're sitting there like a deer in the headlights going, I didn't know that. So, this way at least, the information is flowing to us so that we can at least act knowledgeable about what's going on in our community.
Also, too, I think the second one, he wants to, keep the board posted on using the K-9 also.
Right.
Yeah.
We did ask for that at budget time last year, didn't we?
Yep.
So just to update people who might be watching, there's a 30-year-old man from Evansville, Anthony J. Harride, was arrested and tentatively charged with operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated. Second offense, possession of drug paraphernalia and operating while revoked. And the passenger, his sister, who is 22, also from Evansville, was arrested and tentatively charged with possession of drug paraphernalia. So people are watching, that's what that's about. That's also in our packet. Okay, so we'll go on. Anything else on that? Okay, item D, discussion and possible action regarding sample alcohol sales and service policy and review of minimum standards in ordinance number 13-05. And just to review this a bit, and help me if I'm wrong here, but when we talked about this at license renewal time the last time, one of the issues that some of our license holders had was developing the standards for serving and sales and that type of thing that's required by ordinance. And it was suggested at the board meeting that we have those developed, and the merchant can just accept those. They'll have what they want. They want to add to it, that's fine. But that's this is kind of bringing that to final copy. Is that?
And Candy's done a lot of work on this.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think what we're proposing, as well as Peggy, is, there was some talk of saying to the, people that hold Class Bs, well, you need to look at page 41, if you want to look at it, it's actually page 5 of the ordinance, and you need to come up with a policy that at least addresses these A through O items. And I think if you talk to Peggy and to Candy, they'll tell you that, I'm not trying to be difficult here, that's just not going to happen. We need to work with the liquor license holders and come up with a form. I still think it holds them to, these things, they sign it, their employees sign it, so if something would happen, you still can go back and say, well, you didn't follow your policy and things like that. But I think this is a more realistic way of handling it versus saying to them, you have to come up with your own policy. And plus, it's just easier for us to track it, too.
Yeah.
So.
It's consistent, it's uniform. Otherwise, we have every license holder developing this. Now it's done for them. It helps our merchants, so I think that's a plus too. And,
yeah, that's true.
Like Mike said, Candy and Peggy have done a really nice job on it, so.
Thank you.
Should be really clear. So we need to have a motion and second on that, please?
If you would, please.
What's the motion?
Basically, to adopt this as the policy that we'll send out to Class B licenses.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
And then, we'll have to revise this a little bit for Class A, because now it's not going to be, some of that's not going to be applicable to Class A. But basically, Candy was looking for some direction on this, so.
So we have a motion, a second, to approve the alcohol sales and service policy as presented in our packet. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item E, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance number 15-01, and this would be first reading, second reading, and adoption. Amending section 12.054, number 4, relating to applications for alcohol beverage licenses. This also came out of last year to try to simplify this process.
And we had the board make the motion, but Candy caught it that we never had the board actually amend the liquor license ordinance. That's what we're doing with this ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. That changed one fee, what, from $250 to $25?
Yes.
We just made things a little more
Yep.
reasonable. So, any questions? So again, this is, would be the first reading, second reading, and adoption, so it all gets done tonight, just to affirm what we've done and finalize that. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item F, information from Department of Transportation, February 10th, 2015 meeting on Highway 138 study.
Just FYI.
I think it said that they're not going to be making a 4-lane road, right, was one of the things?
Yeah.
Anything else about it, Mark?
It's a limited, access highway, and I think probably in the short term, you'll see some intersection improvements, but that'll be about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm wondering if as Highway 14 starts to get a little bit closer and starts to become a little bit more real, if this will be revisited. What do you think about that?
They took a hard look at this, as part of the South Belt Line, and this was one of the original routes, or one of the options. Highway 51 has become that option now, or number one option, and they're looking at that as a 4-lane highway down from the Beltline down to the interstate, south and east of Stoughton. But they realize this Highway 138 is gonna increase in traffic volume over the years, so they need to make some, because of previous crashes, need to make some improvements there to lower that number.
Any other questions on the Highway 138 study? We'll go on to item G, information from Oregon Area Historical Society. They have their annual meeting, I believe it's March 8th at 4 o'clock at the Senior Center. And are inviting people to attend that if they would like. And item H, League of Wisconsin Municipalities Capital Buzz. The league opposes the county assessment idea for property.
We just wanted the board to know that. They're just, I think, I don't know if you had a chance, I think there's been a couple articles in the paper, they're just saying that this needs some research, and the counties are not gonna be prepared to do this, take this over when the governor's budget's proposing that it happens, so we'll have to see what happens with that.
Any questions? Okay, item I, discussion of possible action regarding consider sending an email to Joint Finance Committee members requesting them to restore the local government property insurance fund. Mr. Bala, you brought this forward, comments?
I did. I received this in the mail, and after reading it, I brought it down and discussed it with Mr. Grace, and we decided to bring it to the board in hopes that we could make a motion to reach out and ask them to save the local government property insurance fund. I don't know, Mike, would you like to explain why this is important?
Basically, this is probably the least expensive way for us to get property insurance. We do not have to, when I've worked in other places, we've had to hire in some cases, a risk manager, advisor to help place the insurance and things like that. It'd be a lot more expensive. And so I understand why this is happening, because it's less expensive. The state's probably getting some pressure from private insurance companies. I understand what's going on here. I believe that's what's going on here. But it is a benefit for the village if we can continue to get our insurance to the state. It really is. And it's been very good insurance. They're very responsive.
But we'd have to go out
Into the
on our own.
Yes, I mean,
as opposed to having.
we could do that. It's not, but I mean, it's a lot better to go. We get better rates going through the state, we believe.
Right, well, you're bargaining with 973 other government agencies, so
Exactly.
it only makes sense.
But there was an article in the paper Saturday where, the number of communities using it is going down. And so, I think this is like the assessment change. We'll see what happens. I know the Joint Finance Committee is now holding meetings the next couple of weeks on things like this, so.
Have we done this sort of a thing before, where we've been requested to vote on one side or another of a political issue, and we've made a board recommendation or taken a board action to push it out to committee?
Well, typically it just comes to the board, and the last, actually, the last 2 budgets that Walker proposed, I think we've done this a couple of times on different issues, Jeff.
So if we take a motion today to push this out to committee, what's the effect of that on the process when it gets to the committee?
To the Joint Finance Committee?
Right, sorry, wasn't more specific.
Well, we would send an email to the members. The Democrats that are on the committee will agree with us. The Republicans on the committee at this point will I don't know what the reaction would be. I mean, if I contacted each of the Democrats on the committee, most likely they're going to be in agreement with Erkenbach's letter that we should keep the insurance fund. But the Joint Finance, as you know, is the majority is Republicans, so you have to convince some of the Republicans to go with your, and I think the league is trying to, and I think the league's been somewhat successful in the past on some issues to get the Republicans to look at it and back down or change it. So I think it's worth a shot, if you ask my opinion on it.
So we would need a motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Further questions or discussion?
Is there a downside to entertaining a motion or voting on a motion such as this?
No. In my opinion, no.
We had a public forum at the time of Act 10, the room full, and we took information from people and kind of analyzed that and sent a letter to Governor Walker. And it's just a matter of communicating with another level of government, I think, as I would see it anyhow. We have a motion second to send an email to Joint Finance Committee requesting them to restore the local government property insurance fund. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Then item J, we have an informational letter from State Representative Andy Jorgensen regarding the Partnership for Prosperity resolution. Says that he thanks us for providing his office with our resolution regarding the Partnership for Prosperity.
Yes.
That's pretty much it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this? Item K, discussion and possible action appointing Mary Jane Nesbitt to Library Board for a term ending April 2015.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We had, I believe, it was Phil Cox who was, had to resign from the board.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's only for another month?
So
right?
what happens is that we used to appoint people like for 2 years, and we got all off track. So when somebody leaves, I always recommend we just she would serve Phil's term out, and then she'd come up for reappointment in April.
I see.
Otherwise, everything gets off schedule.
As far as the rotation, so you have
Yeah.
people going off, not all at the same time.
Right.
So, yeah, I wondered about that too. Thought it might be one of Mike's typos, but I guess not.
I knew someone was going to ask you that, Steve. Thank you.
No.
Any discussion? Motion second then to approve appointing Mary Jane Nesbitt, the Library Board, to complete the term of Phil Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, item L is upcoming meetings that we have. Special board meeting Monday, March 9th at 5 p.m. Discuss with Jim Mann from Ellers. I'm sure we'll find that interesting and worthwhile with what we've talked about recently. Board meeting March 16th at 5 p.m. Review of the CIP with department heads and consider approving the Public Works Director to send out RFPs for engineering services for Elm Street and South Main Street, North Prairie Parkway, and North Burr Oak. Mark is going to be really busy here, it sounds like, more than usual. Personnel, Public Safety, and Protection Committee meeting, March 23rd at 5 p.m. We will have a discussion with Village Attorney Kyle Gulia regarding new employee policies and an initial discussion of oversight of Police Department. And then a special board meeting on March 30th at 5 p.m. Hold a public forum with liquor license applicants. And then April 6th, no board meeting due to election on April 7th. Any questions on any of those or comments from staff? So Mike's going to work us pretty hard during March.
Absolutely. But then you get off in April.
I was going to say, we get a night off. So 10 is reported committees. There are none tonight. 11 minutes not requiring action. There are none. 12 unfinished business. There is none. 13 new business. There is none. Future agenda items. We'll have a report on the alumni hockey tournament from May 7th through 10th, 2015. And item 15 is a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.